This is logged in on November 25th, 2023, Eastern Standard Time. Sensitive material has been breached and it is now in front of the public. This is very sensitive documentation and the world will be in total chaos if leaked, and it is now leaked. All of it. Not one document, all of it. Place of exploitation, forbidden knowledge television. This must be stopped.
Hey, what's happening, everyone? It's Billy Carson, aka Forbidden Knowledge. What's happening, everybody? I see everybody in the live chat. Shout out to my wife, Elizabeth, and King Simon moderating tonight. We are trying to get Terence Howard on here right now. We're waiting for him to hop on. It seems as if he's having a little bit of a technical difficulty, which is why we're getting off to a little bit of a late start. Hopefully we can get that all sorted out, and he will be joining me here shortly, all right? Anyway, what's up? What's happening in the live chat? I see a lot of people already vibing. You guys have been, wow, really hanging out in this chat and showing up and leaving comments and wow, just been incredible. A lot of great comments, a lot of people from all over the world. I know a lot of people want to see this conversation happen. So I'm just looking forward to seeing if he can get whatever it is sorted out so that he can hop on here with us and go live. Meanwhile, while that's happening, and I plan on being on here for some time tonight, actually. So the chat's moving like crazy. The chat's like flowing. This is incredible. Wow. What a beautiful, beautiful time to be alive. Meanwhile, like I said, while we're trying to get Mr. Howard dialed in here and get him live, I'm going to talk a little bit about civilizations tonight. Okay. I'm going to talk about civilizations. And I'm going to talk about the different levels of civilizations that exist. In other words, we have the Kardashev scale, and I'll be talking about the Kardashev scale here in the interim while we try to get him set up and get him going. But before we do that, there are a couple of announcements I want to make real quick. We have a great announcement going on with our TV network. Our TV network is expanding, and we're getting a whole new look. It's going to be super duper. It's going to look like Netflix and Amazon Prime just got married. Okay. And they had a baby, and their baby is going to be Forbidden Knowledge TV. So make sure you go get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on your app store. I think there's over 100,000 downloads on Google Play, over 100,000 on Apple, and both locations have 5 stars. That's also on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and of course the web at 4bk.tv. Samsung TVs are going to take a little bit to update. All these updates should be flowing through sometime throughout next week. You'll see all these app updates coming in. So when you update your app, you'll have the new version of Forbidden Knowledge TV. The only one that will take a little extra time, I believe, is going to be Samsung and Vizio. And LG TV also might take a few more weeks. We were actually never on Vizio or LG, so we're adding those apps. So we'll be showing up on Vizio and LG TV with the number 4 Forbidden Knowledge TV app. All right. So you guys make sure you go and get the app in your app store. Look, Elizabeth is working on trying to get Terence Howard on here right now, trying to get it all sorted out. But meanwhile, while that's being done, let me go ahead and dial you guys in a little bit on the Kardashev scale. Okay, I think that it's important to understand what that, and I'm reading directly from my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. All right, first of all, let's take a look at the types of civilizations that exist. And if you want to get more information about this, it's in my best-selling book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. You can get it on Amazon or on our website, all right? Types of civilizations. According to Russian astrophysicist Nikolai Kardshev, civilizations can be separated into classifications according to their energetic consumption and disposal. For example, humans eat dead plants and meats, which sustain our energetic needs. Therefore, according to the Kardashev, we are a type 0 civilization. And we have not even made it onto the scale. In other words, the Kardshev scale categorizes humans in the most lowly type of civilization. At this point and at this moment in time, we're not even a type 1 civilization, we're a type 0. And that's why information like what Terence Howard has to share and many other innovators has to share is extremely important to our civilization, because it always takes someone that's going to push the envelope for us to get to the next level. It's always going to take someone that's going to literally look to see how different rules and laws, depending in science and physics, cannot be broken or cheated. How can you get around them? Like, for example, there's ways to travel faster than the speed of light. Okay. The speed of light is a constant, but there are ways to travel faster than the speed of light. For example, if you utilize something called the Alcubierre drive, which was created by a Mexican physicist. And that really is what they call a warp drive. Now, a warp drive, it actually is pretty unique, because a warp drive, it allows a ship or whatever it's installed in to move space. So, for example, what happens is, imagine if you have a tablecloth and you put your ship on the center of the tablecloth. Imagine that the tablecloth is space and your ship is on it. A warp drive shrinks space in front of the ship and expands it out of the back, moving space. It's almost like pulling a tablecloth. And then when you pull the tablecloth, the item on it moves along with the cloth. And so by that method, you can literally travel multiples of the speed of light without violating Einstein's theory of relativity, because the ship itself is not moving. It's the tablecloth that's actually moving. Now, they've tested this in a laboratory setting and actually had great results. The only problem is that we're facing a situation with exotic energy, antimatter. We can only create a very small amount at a time, and it's extremely expensive to create, because we live inside of a globe, a world that has a crazy financial matrix. But once we overcome this economic system, this economic oppression, and realize that our birthright is our ability to travel in space and see the universe, we'll overcome this obsession with capitalization in certain areas, and we'll be able to make enough antimatter or exotic energy, exotic matters, that will allow us to create these warp bubbles and allow us to travel at high speeds. So we haven't even reached a type 1 civilization yet. So when you're thinking about, mankind being the pinnacle of all creation, it's not really there. We're the new kids on the block. We are the new kids on the block. There are 3 main types of civilizations that exist according to Nikolai Kardshev. The types have been arranged into a scale called the Kardshev scale, and are arranged according to how advanced they are at harnessing and utilizing energy. Additionally, others have added 2 extra classifications to the end of the Kardshev scale to make room for more possibilities. The types of Kardshev civilizations are called Type 1, Type 2, Type 3, Type 4, and Type 5. Interestingly enough, these types of civilizations match with Thoth's descriptions of the various levels he witnessed as he traveled through the universe. So Thoth, the Atlantean priest king who wrote the Emerald Tablets, he literally talks about this scale and the levels that he has witnessed with his own eyes as he's seen civilizations of mankind rise and fall throughout the universe. Pretty interesting for a person to write a statement like that in his own text, especially at the time when people were supposed to be hunter-gatherers trying to find out how they were going to get their next meal and some safe shelter. Something you just don't lay around making up sci-fi stories. It must have some real knowledge behind the mythology. Let's take a look at the Kardshev scale. Type 1. This type of civilization consists of species who can harness energy from a neighboring star. These beings gather and store energy from the star to provide sustenance for a growing population. Abilities these kinds of civilizations might possess would include having control over earthquakes, volcanoes, and other weather patterns. Even though these feats may be difficult for our current society to achieve, according to this scale, these are just basic and primitive levels of control in a Type 1 civilization. It's estimated that human beings may be able to become a Type 1 civilization within the next 100 years. Now, let's take a look at that. 100 years ago, we were in a horse, buggy, and carriage. A horse, buggy, and carriage. And in 100 years, we have quantum computers. We have teleportation. We have been experimenting heavily with quantum entanglement. Now we're moving into quantum entangled communications. We have AI, which is soon to become AGI. We have rovers on Mars. We have the Huygens probe, which has gone beyond the rings of Saturn. We have the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 headed to interstellar space in only 100 years. And so in another 100 years, because of the exponential growth of a technological civilization, if we don't destroy ourselves, we have the capability of reaching a type 1 civilization. Let's take a look at a type 2 civilization while we're still trying to wait here. Let me just check. We're still waiting for Terence Howard to hop on here, so hang tight. They're working on it. Type 2 civilization. And again, for everyone who just joined, I'm reading from the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets by Billy Carson. This is my book that I wrote 4.5 years ago. It's the #1 bestseller on Amazon and on forbiddenknowledge.com. A type 2 civilization consists of beings who can actually harness the power of an entire star. This means that they can control the star and not just the energies around the star. Even in our type 1 civilization can do that, but it has been hypothesized that they may be able to control a star using a device called a Dyson sphere. A Dyson sphere is a gigantic object that they create and build around their planet and a star. This device would be used to encompass an entire star and then gather most of it, if not all of its energy, before sending it to other planets for later use. We're talking about energy manipulation on a grand scale. A different method might be to create a gigantic reactor that can harness the star's energy. That is, if our race has mastered fusion power. Yet another method might involve utilizing nearby gas giants for their hydrogen, which is extremely powerful. And we know that if you extract hydrogen from water, utilizing electrolysis, you can push those hydrogen molecules into a chamber for combustion, and you can achieve combustion and locomotion in a vehicle, and your only side effect for emissions is actually fresh steam, clean water. So it's one of the cleanest fuel sources that we know exist within the known universe. A type 2 civilization would be extremely powerful and cannot be compared to anything we currently know. If we were to become a type 2 civilization, however, we would have amazing abilities. For instance, an object the size of our moon was on a course to crash into the Earth. We would be able to vaporize it out of existence. We would even move our planet out of the object's way. In fact, we could move another planet into its path, creating a shield that protected Earth from the impact. This kind of energy could make our civilization immune to extinction. We're talking about the capability of moving moons and planets. Now, what's interesting about that, if you look in the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation, they talk about the fact that Earth is a result or exists as a result of an exploded planet. That Tiamat, a planet named Tiamat, which was supposedly so glorious with the water and the land that it had, but it had so much water that the sun would shine off of it. It was rumored that it was more beautiful, or it rivaled the sun's glory. That's how beautiful this planet was, according to the epic in the Enuma Elish. Now, what's interesting, who wrote this text? Who in the world realized that there was another planet in our solar system that exploded and became the asteroid belt? And the reason why I say who, at the time that this was written, the Earth didn't even exist yet, because the Earth is actually a result of this collision where a huge giant chunk swung away and recoalesced as the Earth. Now, in this text, you discover that it gravitationally tugged along with it what we call the moon. The moon was orbiting this Tiamat planet. It was one of many moons, but also it was positioned in a specific orbit at a Lagrange point to stabilize Earth on its wobble, on its axis. Who knew this kind of information tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years ago? Who saw that this planet was so beautiful it rivaled the sun's glory when the sun shone on it? What angle did they see that from? What position in our solar system? It wasn't Earth, so where were they? On Venus or Mercury? Where were they? When Earth shifted into the current location, becoming the third planet from the sun and recoalescing with all the organic life, all the organic material needed for life and the water, this is where the Bible said they separated the waters from the waters. That's in the Enuma Elish, copied word for word into the Bible. And then it pushed Venus closer to the sun, and that pushed Mercury gravitationally closer to the sun as well. But who knew this? But again, we're talking about the ability to maneuver a moon into place to stabilize the axis of the Earth's wobble so we can create a stable environment, stable seasons. If we were to take the moon away right now, this second, and the moon vanished and disappeared, never came back, we would not be able to live on this planet. The gravitational force of the moon helps to stabilize Earth's wobble, and that creates a sustainable weather environment. Once the moon is gone, the weather environment is going to become chaotic, and that chaotic weather can be negative 40 in the morning or night, and then the next day it could be 130, 140 in the same location, mudslides, earthquakes consistently happening, calderas erupting nonstop, molten lava everywhere. You're talking about severe winds up to 400 or 500 miles per hour. This is what happens when the moon is gone. Now, the moon is actually leaving Earth. This is why we have to create a breakaway civilization ourselves. The moon is moving back away from Earth a few centimeters every year, and it has been doing so for a very, very long time. We know that in a few million years or so, it's going to be so far away from the Earth that the Earth's wobble will become unstable again, and this planet will become uninhabitable for human beings in the civilization as we know it. If we don't create a breakaway civilization somewhere else, we will become extinct. A type 3 civilization. In a type 3 civilization, their species becomes a master race. They know everything there is to know about energy. To become this type of civilization, humans would require to go through hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, biological and mechanical. It would be reasonable to think that future generations, when humans reach this stage, they may be much different than the humans we know of today. These types of humans may include cyborgs, which are cybernetic beings that consist of biological and robotic body parts. We're already working on that right now, aren't we? Humans, as we know them today, may even become a subspecies in a kind of society. In all likelihood, wholly biological humans would probably be seen as inferior, unevolved, or even disabled by their cyborg counterparts. Does that sound familiar to you? How might this kind of civilization work? It is speculated that there might be millions of cyborgs and robots capable of self-replicating, making it possible for them to colonize entire galaxies, moving from one star to the next. If they built Dyson spheres to encapsulate each star, they then could create a massive network and send energy back to their home planet or to other planets if needed. They would not be without perceivable complications. However, because the laws of physics would constrain them, unless they developed a warp drive or mastered wormhole teleportation, which are only theoretical at this time, they would be limited. But type 3 civilization, are we going to get to the point where we realize the benefits of utilizing, machine technology in collusion with biological avatars, our own bodies? There are a lot of benefits for people who are disabled, for people who are blind, deaf, lost their sight, lost limbs. I've had severe car accidents or other types of accidents or birth defects. Phenomenal. But also, will there ever come a time where human beings will seek to merge with this technology by choice, even though they seem to be perfectly biologically healthy? And could that create a whole nother break off or branch of humanoid that's not really quite human, that's more a hybrid of cybernetics and human or hominid? Pretty interesting. And then you have a type 4 civilization. Kardshev did not believe that a species could achieve a type 4 classification. He claimed that that kind of civilization would be too advanced. They would be able to do so many things like harness the energy and content of an entire universe, enabling them to be able to even live inside of black holes or accelerate the expansion of space. I mean, can you imagine? Maybe that already does exist. In his mind, he didn't think it could exist, but theoretically, it's absolutely possible. And could this universe be an offshoot of that? That takes me into my book, Fractal Holographic Universe, The Matrix Code Revealed. And let me just take a quick pause and check on this situation and see if Terrence is going to be able to get on here. Let me text him again real quick. Let me see, getting on. Having some technical difficulties right now. The last message I got here, I got the prayer hands from him. They're trying. I know I went live with him one time, and we tried to go on 3 different platforms. We're having a lot of technical difficulties just getting our communication going and sharing some knowledge on a private meeting. Anyway, so that was a type 4. A type 5. This is where godlike beings may exist. They would have the knowledge and means of manipulating the universe as they please. Now, we talk about the fractal holographic universe, right? And a civilization that's capable of creating a universe within a universe, or manipulating a universe, or creating a universe outside of a universe. We're getting into understanding what method could be used for creation. What could be used for that type of creation? That's what this book talks about. It talks about the fact that we could be living in a fractal holographic universe created by an ancestor civilization, or which is, a civilization that would be much higher on the Kardashev scale than us. So to us, they would seem godlike. It would almost seem like complete and absolute magic. And so this universe itself, when you begin to really analyze and break down what is it made of, you find out that we're living in a hologram. And what that means is it doesn't take anything away from us being alive or us being sentient beings or us being divine or anything like that. It's just the method of the absolute creation, okay? It's the method of the creation. So if you actually go and look at matter and you zoom into matter, you begin to see that the only thing you lose as you zoom in is resolution. We do see a form of pixelation at the smallest scale. As a smaller and smaller scale, we see pixelation. And that brings me to ask the question, which is something I'm working on right now with photons. I'm doing some photon experiments, and I'm calculating the traversing of photons back and forth and analyzing the ability for a photon to actually not travel from point A to point B, where that photons actually propagate from pixel to pixel, just like in a video game, just like on a game screen. So this is another aspect of the fractal holographic universe, that light doesn't move from point A to point B, that it actually is propagating. As it appears in one pixel, the energy and the information is then collapsed, and it re-energizes and opens up in the next pixel, and the next pixel, and the next pixel, and the next pixel. And actually, everything that exists in our universe, hypothetically, is moving that exact same way. As I'm moving my hand through the air, it appears that my hand is solid and that my hand is moving up and down. But what may be actually happening is my hand is actually moving through this pixelated network, this matrix. And every time I believe that it's moving, or the illusion of it moving, is pixels being propagated, and or the fields, the electromagnetic fields being propagated from one pixel to the next, giving me the illusion of movement. But at the end of the day, we know that now all things are actually local. Even distance is an illusion. Separation is an illusion. All right. So, and what does that mean? It's an illusion. It means that it's not the way we taught, the classical way we were taught that everything moves. It's actually much deeper than that. It's much deeper than that. That we are on the microscopic scale, everything is pixelated, and that we are literally photons and light. For example, like the light that's lighting up this room in here is propagating pixel by pixel until it reaches my retina. It's carrying the information from one pixel to the next, just like in a video game. And this universe itself is a fractal holographic light matrix made up of an energetic grid that connects everything within it. And if you are a species that has the capability of understanding the higher knowledge of manipulation of energy fields and how this universe is created in the software that it's running on, because it is running on software, it's running on the Adinkra codes, and it's running on the Adinkra codes in the Mandelbrot set. We know that for a fact now in science, actually peer-reviewed science. The Adinkra codes, which are kind of like the Dogon or Adinkra symbols, the Adinkra codes, which were discovered by Professor Sylvester James Gates Jr., are actually, they hide mathematical codes that are error-correcting codes, the same ones that run search engines and web browsers. And then we have the Mandelbrot set by Benoit Mandelbrot, which is a fractal mathematical formula that actually explains the existence of everything in the known universe with a very small, simple one-line mathematical code. Pixar Studios inserted that into their animation software, and they were able to create entire animated movies from a line of code this wide. And they were the first, but now everyone's using that code, the fractal mathematical code, because it creates everything you need on the fly. Every frame you need as you need it exists. Just like when I walk out of this room, the next frame of existence that I need is there for me. It's based on the fractal mathematic code from Benoit Mandelbrot. So we are rediscovering everything that already existed. We're rediscovering who we are, and we are rediscovering what this universe is and how it works. All right. And I see a very special friend of mine popping on here. Let me see if I can bring him up so we can get this party started. See if we can get a text.
I thought it was 8 o'clock LA time.
Oh no, it was Eastern. Yeah. You got the tech working?
Yeah, this is hard time. Should be.
Okay, your picture's on, but your voice is there's a little bit of static there.
Yeah, I'm here but I'm just on my phone.
Yeah.
I can't see you at all.
Yeah, now you got the screen black.
But you can't hear me.
I can hear you.
Wow.
You can't hear? Can you hear me?
Well, I wish I could see you. Yeah, I'm gonna try and join again.
Okay.
Just try one more time. It won't even let me cancel out of here.
We're gonna get the technical difficulty straightened out, guys. We're trying to get them. We're trying to get them in here. Woo. Just have patience. Sometimes you gotta have patience. Everything happens in divine time. All right, we're gonna get him back in here. He's going out and coming back in. Let's see. He's trying to get in here. All right, let's see. Let me move this one out. Let me try to get him up here.
There we go.
Okay. Hey, we got you, man.
I can see you.
You can see me?
Yep.
Okay. All right. How you doing, bro?
Hold on. Let me get off my Wi-Fi here.
Okay.
And get on my Wi-Fi may be slowing me up on this. Let's see, settings, turn this off. Wi-Fi off.
He's gonna have to come back in and be changing his Wi-Fi. He's gonna have to come back in the link again. All right.
Yeah.
All right, you're back now.
Wow.
Okay.
How you feel, Bill? I'm so sorry, man.
It's all good, man.
Sorry. I was on the 5 driving, and I was like, wait a minute.
It's all good, man. Listen, technical difficulties happen all the time. It's all good, man. We have 11,400 people in the live chat right now. Yeah, you know, and they came to hear what we had to say, man. Just vibe with us and hear some knowledge. First of all, let me introduce you. Number one, for everybody who just logged in case you don't know who this man is, this is Terence Howard. He's an incredible mathematical genius. He's a scientist in my eyes. I call him a doctor. You may know him from acting. He's received over 20 awards in various different films. He's had TV series, movies, Iron Man, you know, you name it. The man is an incredible talent and a blessing to the universe, and we're happy to have him here on the Forbidden Knowledge podcast. I just got to make sure I get your introduction in there, brother.
That was amazing. That was the best damn introduction I think ever been given on my behalf. So I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you and to speak to your audience. There's so many things in this world that needs to have a voice and be spoken about. Yeah. And it doesn't seem to have any place in our common world, you know, to where they mention that, okay, everybody should talk and should have a voice. But when someone starts speaking, the first thing they want to do is shut them up. Yeah, you know, because they start asking questions and the questions challenge the fundamentals that everybody sits on. But if your fundamentals are being challenged, then maybe you need new fundamentals, because a true foundation, you know, you don't challenge that.
Yeah, facts. So, that's what's happening, and that's why I thought it was important to get you in front of the people that I call my people leaders. I don't have followers; I have leaders. You know, because these people they vibe with your information, they're vibing with your knowledge, and I believe to me it's innovative and it's fresh, it's refreshing. And what is science after all? It's to explore the matters of interest from a level of logic and analyzation, and actually to try to break those laws to see how they can be broken or find ways to go around them. And if we've never done that, we wouldn't even be on this screen right now connecting with each other via satellites and cell towers. So it took somebody to challenge the status quo to make this technology even happen. And that's just the standard process that it takes for innovation to happen. Unfortunately, in this human civilization, it takes a lot of challenging the status quo and going against the mainstream. I mean, heck, even the people that became the founding fathers of America, they were outlaws. I mean, you have to go against them to create something.
Yeah, you can't ask for freedom. If you're asking for it and they give it to you, it's never given to you. You have
absolute facts, man.
Freedom of information and freedom to live our lives according to truth. You know, that should not be stunted, but it has been stunted now. You know, from the looks that everything that I've seen in the last few months since I did Joe Rogan's show, and especially after I did the show with Eric Weinstein, I've watched the level of interest for people questioning the truth out there go down again, almost as if, you know, the plug was taken out of the bottom of the tub and all the water is draining out. And it's like, don't worry, that water fills itself back up. You know, the truth, there's three things that can't be hidden, and that's the truth, the moon, and the sun. Neither one of those things can remain hidden. So as long as we're talking about it and pushing things forward, you know, I look at a lot of the comments that I saw on there. Someone actually said, good, somebody finally shut him down or stopped him. You know, what did they stop me from doing? From enlightening the world a little bit, you know, bringing a new understanding of geometry that we're supposed to have. Like you said, you're supposed to challenge it. It has to have rigor. You know, your system of mathematics, your system of scientific evaluation. At what point did they evaluate any of the patents? At what point did they evaluate any of the geometry?
Right.
Beyond sitting there smiling and passing it off. You know, but what was interesting, on the show, Eric didn't show as much interest, but he invited me to his house to have dinner on Friday. We had Shabbat. And I took him over a lot of those same pieces that I tried to share with him on the show, especially the linchpin, the 4 bonded linchpin, and 4 of those bonded together. I wanted him to have it so he could see that this isn't just mere circumstance and happenstance. This is actually a fundamental part of universal growth, or potential. He ultimately sent text saying that he thinks that the linchpin is the sixth platonic solid. You know, from a purely scientific and academic thing, it solves that. But then there's the conundrum of, you know, I came here to put an end to the platonic solids only because they are averages, you know. But the linchpin is the average between the tetrium, which represents the electric potential, full electric potential, and the all shape, which represents the full or complete magnetic field and that potential. So the linchpin is the average between it. It's the conversation between the micro and the macro, and it allows for everything to balance its way out with it. But it wasn't never meant to be added to an old set of fundamentals that are just purely wrong, logically, scientifically, mathematically. They don't hold water. They're imaginary things. And I thought science was supposed to be talking about the truth and not about imaginary things.
That's the absolute facts. And let me just, you know, the thing that I notice about some of these interviews is they ask you a question, and as soon as you get into the groove of trying to create the answer to that question and come up to the epiphany moment where we can go, aha, another question comes in, or you get cut off, and then you get sidetracked. And we never got back to allow you to finish some of those great answers that you were giving and to give your perspective and your point of view on some of this scientific rigor. And I think that was a real discredit to the interview. I think that a person should be able to speak and to get their point across to the fullest, and then you go back and forth from there. But you know, you don't ask a person a question and then cut them off. I think the best way is to allow a person to get their point across. I mean, if you're in a relationship, and you know, the biggest problem in arguments is that no one wants to hear the other person talk. You know, you shut your wife up or your boyfriend up or your husband up, whatever, and you guys are going back and forth, and nothing gets solved. And it turns into a toxic relationship. And that's what happens a lot of times. And I think that, you know, sometimes I think people want to throw around their badge of education honor, and instead of just saying, you know, let me humble myself a little bit and just let me tap in and see if I can wrap my mind around what this man is trying to show me, what he's trying to teach me, what he's trying to get me maybe to see from a higher perspective. Maybe some of the old ways or some of the things that I've been learning, maybe it is time for me to look at them in new, fresh and clean eyes. And I think that's important. I think that people don't even know what an actual patent requirement is. Before you talk, Terrence, I want to read this to people. This is important because I want you to talk about some of the patents tonight too. But let me just read this.
Huh? No.
Okay.
The service was
bad. To be issued a patent in the United States, an invention must meet 5 primary requirements. Patentable subject matter. The invention must be eligible for patent protection. Utility. The invention must be capable of use and provide a benefit. Novelty. The invention must be new and not previously described in a patent or other publication. The invention must be obvious in relation to something already invented. The invention must include a clear description of how to make use of it. And of course, some additional elements, providing complete legal names to avoid confusion, providing a government-issued ID, and so forth and so on. So, I mean, you can't just say, I'm going to run down and go get me a couple of patents right quick. It's not that easy. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, my first patent I did in 2009. It was for World of Windows, you know, which has now become the basis for the AR, VR world that everyone has. I didn't understand the game at the time regarding how to pay a maintenance fee every 3 months or so to maintain a patent. So that was abandoned. But it's still, after it was granted, even though Brian Keating has gone on to say, oh, that was never granted, you know, he's mistaken. He spent a lot of time trying to discredit the patents that I have. And, you know, I have just in the US alone, you know, over 97 granted patents, trademarks, copyrights, all of those things. But over 67 of them are all for technology and for new geometry. and they all describe, and they were right on the show. I used the wrong term. I shouldn't have used super symmetrical system because they already have something allocated for that. I should have called it a grand unified super symmetrical system, because that's what this is. Um, we have patented 4 super symmetrical systems that they've never been able to see before. They've only been able to tile out, horizontally for their super symmetric systems. They've never been able to tile out vertically, in all directions, volumetrically. They've never seen the wave conjugations that comes from the flower of life. So a lot of those patents came from there. And one of the things that they were talking about on the show, they're like, we're doing a peer review. I don't have any peers on that show. There was no peers on that show because none of them have made the discoveries that I've made. They haven't created a new form of flight. They haven't provided unlimited midair bonding. They haven't innovated any system. They've just regurgitated things that's been said for thousands of years, and unfortunately, those things are wrong. We just filed a new patent for a neutrino gun that will speed up. I did this with Jeff Yee, a mathematician that I work with, but it will speed up the radioactive decay almost 5 to 10 times.
Wow.
But what it will do inside of a nuclear power plant is actually create a circumstance that it creates more energy because it's breaking down creating the radioactive decay, speeding that process up. And there's another process, but all of these patents, beyond that one, that hasn't been granted yet.
Yeah.
We just filed that 3 weeks ago, but all my other patents have been granted. So for them to sit up and try and say, I don't have these patents, you can't take linchpin out of the sky. You can't take AR, VR world away. You can't, you're living by these things, but I think that it did not serve their narrative and their agenda that this self-educated Black man, was able to do this. But it should make sense seeing that, every other race has six DNA, 6 DNA sequences, except the descendants of Africa. African descendants, and I hate using the term Africa because it should be called Alkebulan, because Africa means sunny horror based on the Latin word.
Cuba.
Yeah.
Very factual.
We should be, but anyone that's from Africa, we have 9 DNA series compared to 6, which provides a greater potential for genius. You sit there and wonder how is it that this race of people were able to survive, not just 500 years of slavery, since the Talmud came out in 500 AD. There's a book called The Ebb and Flow of History, and it talks about the Jewish Talmud and, the stories that these sages added to biblical stories. And that was the reason that Black people were considered, they were considered less than humanity because of what was said in the Talmud. And that's why I mentioned that book, The Ebb and Flow of History, on page 34. If you take a look at it, that was the first Negrophobic text put Noah and Shem, Japheth, and Ham. And they said that Ham must have gone in there, and because he had to pierce at his father in the darkness of night, his eyes had to be buggered out, and since it was dark, he had to have dark skin. They were going to curse his children with dark skin. Since he had to turn his head, in the middle of the night, their hair would be kinky. And they changed the story to where it said that Ham had actually buggered his father, and another sage said that he had unmanned him. But this goes around for 1,000 years. So there was no moral opprobrium against slavery, against enslaving Black people, because they had been designated by God and by Noah through these sages, they had been designated to be the ones that would carry wood and bring water for Japheth and Shem. And so these little misconceptions and
Mhm.
little lies that go out there, they do have a massive impact, because there's a lot of people that probably won't even take anything that I've said seriously
Mhm.
because of the things that's been thrown on it, but they never examine any of the stuff that I talked about. Like I asked them, I said, you show me one time where an action times an action doesn't have a reaction, and I will show you, and I will say 1 times 1 equals 1. But as
Yeah.
long as an action times an action has a reaction, there has to be more than one in multiplying those numbers. And even though I said that I meant it as a metaphor, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
Well, there's a metaphor called "It's raining cats and dogs." It doesn't mean that maybe cats and dogs aren't falling, but it's still raining like hell. There's
Yeah.
still something wrong with our math for it to have that contradiction where the cubed root, where the square root of 2 cubed has the same value as the square root of 2 times 2. That should not take place. And that's just one of the inconsistencies I found with the calculator. There's so many other ones that make that entire thing useless, but I think they're frightened because they don't want to change, even though they see the foundation is crumbling.
Right.
They would
Oh, it's
rather
definitely crumbling.
die.
Yeah, it's definitely crumbling. Your image is a little bit frozen right now. Can you move your phone over just a little bit, maybe, and see?
They'll probably unfreeze in about 2 seconds, maybe.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. Hopefully it unfreezes and it's been frozen for a few minutes. But yeah. So basically, what you're saying is accurate. If you look at the innovation that Black people are capable of, it's mind-boggling, because if you just go into the actual list of actual inventions that exist throughout the known world, you'll find out that predominantly the majority of them were created by Black people, especially during the time of slavery, because we had to become innovators because of the amount of labor and work that we were doing. And so our minds were like, listen, man, we can't keep bending over and picking this stuff with our hands. We need a tractor. We need a motorized plow. We need a real toilet bowl. So and the innovation just consistently kept growing and growing and building and building. And if you want to look at it from a historical standpoint, the quote unquote modern world was built on the backs of Black people and our inventions, which predominantly most of them were taken away and siphoned away, and we didn't get full credit for a lot of the work that we did, because of course the plantation owner would take the credit, but we were the inventors nonetheless. So we have incredible innovative minds, and I think the perception of the world is they show on TV people in the ghettos fighting each other and people in the ghettos getting in trouble all the time. That's just a small sliver of reality for who we really are. But when you see it on TV all the time, that's what people are programmed to believe globally. So it just builds on the stereotype. But in true reality, we're some of the most creative and incredible people in the world. I mean, everything from dancing to athletics, to music, to mathematics, to physics, and everything else.
Anytime you provide a level playing field for children,
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are genetically predisposed to accomplish greater things will rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Everyone else, all the other races, they left Africa a little too soon. So they're like born prematurely.
Mm-hmm.
A child born 2 months prematurely will never have the potential that a child that goes to full to their full term will have. And as descendants of Africa, African descendants, we stayed in the womb. We had those extra 2 months to continue to grow and to pull from the mother. So at the end of the day, those 9 DNA series, they have been what is responsible for us surviving all of the atrocities that's happened to us for over 1,000 years with this stuff. And they'll continue to grow unless we water them down and stop feeding our strengths. But we have the potential. We just need to recognize that we have that potential, and that's what I don't think they want us to have it. They came on that show specifically to tell me to stop teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Stop teaching. He said that countless times. Stop
Yes.
teaching.
Yeah.
Yet I get on the phone call with him and Ed Franco, who's the head of math for UC Berkeley, and we spent 2 weeks going through all of these things, to where Ed was like, don't worry about Tyson, don't worry about Neil deGrasse Tyson. He won't be remembered. You're going to be remembered for these things, But I'm not always sure that these things that I've presented to him, whether it will be remembered as my stuff. And that's why it was necessary to go and patent it. If I didn't patent these things, all this stuff would be in someone else's hands under someone else's name right as we speak. But I'm waiting for that MIT and Harvard world, everyone they're associated with, to make their innovations or come out with their new understanding and try and say that it's not based upon, the information that I shared with them. But everyone out there, the audience needs to understand we're at the very end of this crumbling system, and we need the knowledge that is being shared in order to survive and be able just to survive the next couple of years of what's going to happen to us.
Yeah, definitely. I've been looking heavily into the Flower of Life pattern for a very long time. The Flower of Life pattern is a very ancient pattern. I've seen it in ancient Egypt, in ancient temples like the Osirian, which is so old. It's probably, in my estimation, somewhere around 30 to 40,000 years old. It's etched into the stone columns at the Osirian, which is lower than the Temple of Seti. In other words, the Temple of Seti is built up here, and beneath it on the side, you have the temple, the Osirian temple, or the Temple of Osiris, which means that it's so much older that it was built back then at a much lower level. And as time passes on, they keep building more temples on top of more ancient sites. And inside of one of those, on those stone columns at the base, inside this thing, which is really not a temple to me, it looks more like a machine. It looks like an energetic machine that ran on hydropower. But on one of these columns, you see multiple flowers of life, but they're not painted on, which is or hieroglyphed. They actually appear to be atomically etched into the fabric of the columns themselves. Yeah. Which is in some way was done that is just, it's mind-boggling and mind-blowing. And it's amazing that all ancient civilizations have an imprint or knowledge of the Flower of Life and the unparalleled power that it actually possesses. You want to vibe on the Flower of Life a little bit?
Yeah, well, that was every discovery that I've made, all of those patents, they were all based off of that flower, because I wanted to understand where the fundamentals had come from, the platonic solids, where they had gotten those from. And some of the earliest stuff that I could find was they took it from the Flower of Life, and they drew straight lines where the circles overlapped each other, and they averaged the space out. And that's why I said the platonic solids are approximations and averages. But the being that was instructing me, he said, why don't you just take the individual pieces that make up the flower and put it together based on universal ratios? So I put 4 of the triangular pieces together, and it gave me the tetrahedron, which was the geometry of hydrogen, and they gave me the patents to it. And then I was like, okay, what if I put 8 of them together? And then that became the Huntian, and it became the strong force, because it had 8 contractive poles and only 6 magnetic poles, which meant that it had a greater attractor, whereas the tetrahedron had 4 attractive poles and 4 repulsive poles. So that would be the weak nuclear force. And I was like, as I started putting the rest of the pieces together, I was like, what happens if I put 6 bubbles together, which meant taking more pieces and putting them together. But I built all of those models based off of universal ratios and the Flower of Life. Literally everything has been the Flower of Life. So I believe that whoever left that molecularly carved into those columns and all around the world. They left this here for us because they knew with this knowledge, it would give us a fundamental base that every advanced civilization in the universe is able to use. And with that, we can manipulate not only matter, but we can manipulate, we have the ability to affect cause.
Yes.
We're no longer limited to the effects of nature. We now can partake in the cause of it. And that's why I was so excited, because if hydrogen makes up 99% of the universe, and we now have the geometry of hydrogen, that means we can manipulate 99% of what takes place in the universe. That makes us gods.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we utilize information, but why are they so hell-bent on not utilizing it? Because these wave conjugations that come from there, there's new axioms and postulates to be written from them that will make all the other axioms and postulates, or these assumptions, disappear. There's no assumptions with the flower of life when it's open properly. It provides super symmetrical system. I pulled 3 different symmetrical systems from that flower, and I kept it quiet while I was doing it. My wife looked at me like I was crazy. You don't have to patent everything. And I was like, yes, you do. Because if you don't, they don't believe that it's yours.
Yeah.
You know, and Eric Weinstein went on to say, well, I'm Pierce Morgan. Yeah, I think, well, 99% of what he said was BS, but there's this 1%, and he says, but I'm not sure it's his. I'm not sure it's his. Well, I think the patents say that it's mine.
Oh, yeah. The patents are yours. They're all yours, for sure.
And I'm here not trying to rule over anything, but I feel like I'm a keeper of the garden. That's all I am. I'm here tending the garden. And anybody that wants to come and take the fruits from the flower of life, fruit from the tree of life, they can come. They're welcome in here. I did the book for free, but everything is based on that flower of life that's behind you. That's all it needs.
Right.
They don't need the rest of it, but they need to get rid of the straight lines or these imaginary projections, linear projections that do not exist, and just creates problems within the mathematical world.
Right. Which is one of the reasons, those lines are some of the reasons why we haven't achieved cold fusion and many other technologies that we should be privy to right now. One thing, I took the flower of life, and if you take the flower of life and turn it into a 3-dimensional object, like take it away from 2D and turn it into 3D, you can fit 64 tetrahedrons within these axes that exist within the flower of life. And then they connect on a vertice, which creates something called the vector equilibrium. And then at the center of that vector equilibrium, theoretically, is unparalleled, unlimited power. We're talking about 0-point energy, which exists at every Planck unit in space-time throughout the known universe. And we just need to tap into that. I think some people have tried to create technologies that could tap into it. Have you looked into anything with that?
Well, what they're lacking is the angles of incidence. They're still trying to approach these things from a Cartesian base. And for the audience, I say Cartesian, it means orthogonal or Euclidean space. They use these 90-degree angles. That's the basis of their entire understanding. But because that is not how the universe behaves, that's not how matter arranges itself. It doesn't arrange itself according to 45-degree angles or 90-degree angles. None of that stuff makes sense in the universe. It actually becomes irrational. Like a straight line is irrational in curved space, the same way that curved space is irrational in flat plane, in Euclidean space. That's so. If they would utilize the actual pieces that come from the flower, if they would do the mimicry that the universe does, it doesn't rebuild the wheel every damn time. It just takes that same wheel and apply it. Plug it in, plug it in, plug it in. You don't have to be redundant. You don't have to do all this superfluous stuff to reach something. You just have to use the proper tools. But what we've been able to accomplish with our propulsion system, we're getting more energy out of it than we're putting into it. That's that so-called 0-point energy, but it's by using the proper geometries. What I shared with them about beryllium and its ability to draw in oxygen, or its attractor as an attractor for oxygen, to break oxygen from hydrogen, that no matter how much they try to silence it up, that's real.
Right.
-2 and the +2 are, they're going to mate. And then whatever's left out, they're going to be left out. So they can attempt to try and deaden the knowledge, but the people that were supposed to hear it, they heard it. And the whole reason I said it was so that people can survive and take care of their families when everything goes to hell.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. There's so much power in this. Even you're talking about creating propulsion that can produce more energy than you're putting into it. There's something called an M drive. I don't know if you've heard of the M drive yet.
M drive, that's still mixed with string theory, that whole 5 things. No, I may be wrong.
Okay, well, the M drive is actually for propulsion. So it's a propulsion system that utilizes a microwave that bounces around inside the cone. And at first, everybody scoffed. They laughed. Scientists told them this will never work. You guys are wasting funds. We're going to pull your funding. And they got this thing to actually work. China actually tested it first ahead of us because the American scientists were too busy laughing at the inventors. And then China launched one up into space and had been testing it in space for some years now. But this bouncing a microwave with no fuel around inside of a cone creates propulsion that actually never stops, utilizing nothing but a bouncing microwave. No chemical rocket fuel, no propellant. And because space has reduced friction or almost no friction, you continue to accelerate until you reach a percentage of the speed of light. So there's this, I'm just giving an example of technology that should be far beyond where it's at now, but because of like what's happened to you and many other people, it falls into this bubble of, woo-woo, but then come to find out this stuff is real and it really does work. And that's kind of what we're
secretly will, they'll publicly defame it and then privately go and claim it. That's their dance. There's so many advancements in technology that we could have married ourselves to. And I say marry because we would have needed to do that to get away from the garbage that we've been doing. But if we get off of their money, the problem is we're so connected to their gold. We're still doing everything and that's what gives them power and authority over us. If we go back to bartering, if we recognize that the money, the fiat system is all garbage, and we go to a bartering system of trading goods.
We lost him temporarily. We're sure he'll bounce right back in here. But we're having a good discussion, even though it may just a little foggy. We're having a great discussion. So I hope you guys are learning something here tonight. We got you.
Okay, I was getting bit by those little bitty bugs up there, man.
Oh man.
I wish I could go inside of my casita, but we've got so much stuff pulling together over there. But in watching the walk that you've taken, for Black people to speak against the Holy Scriptures, to speak against the Bible, or question it, that's a hard thing. That's a hard sell, but you bravely walked out and talked about the truth consistently. And I'm of the idea that 6,000 years for the last 1,000 years have been very successful in propagating the history of their forefathers and of who they come from and their gods. Wonderful. I love that. But what about our forefathers? What about the gods of our ancestors? That has a much richer history and a longer history than just 6,000 years ago. That there are no contradictions regarding, oh God, it didn't cause it to rain, and until Noah 4,000 years ago was the first time it ever rained on the planet, even though that's a necessary part of any planet. Right. And based on the calculations that I was able to pull up for the age of our solar system, it would take 9 trillion years for the Earth to get here, moving at 1.5 centimeters, at 0.6 centimeters, 0.6 inches a year. And that drift has not changed. So they can try and fancy it up any way they want. And you mean in 9 trillion years? And that's just going linearly. That's not even undulating according to how everything goes up and down and moves, in this circular fashion going around the sun. So that would probably take it up into damn near 30 trillion years if you calculate that in. You mean it had never rained? God never caused it to rain on this planet for 30 trillion years? And you get all of this here? I was like, no, that doesn't hold up. And how does a male God produce a son without having a feminine deity next to him? As above, so below. So I had to walk away from that just because it was just numbing. The fact that my ancestors, this is what you got from the 400 years of slavery. This is what you brought home. Now you're worshiping their gods. That's a conquered people. You're naming your children after what? And that's great what they've done. But it's like, let's get to our stuff. Let's work on that that extra DNA that we have and start putting our name back on it. I'm actually a part of something called Taking Flight, where we're raising money to build museums, that will show Black inventors and show our contribution to the world in comparison to, you see for children of a different race, they have illustrious, beautiful museums. So they always know they have these shining stars of where they've come from. But we don't have anything lighting our way, and that's what we're trying to build so that we are aware of our potential and therefore aware of our responsibilities. And that's why I want to share that information. And despite whether people hate me for bringing it up or not, I'm going to bring up the truth, no matter what happens with it.
Yeah, man, that's what you got to do. Listen, and that's amazing. So hats off to you for that, because it takes, for the things that we do, it just takes courage. You talked about how I speak out and question religion and question the status quo. And, you're going against the scientific community, and, they want to say, where's your degree? And well, who was the first person with a degree? Because somebody without a degree taught the first person that they gave a degree to. There's always there's always somebody before somebody else that taught somebody. And so, but it just takes the courage, man. I'm really excited about this museum that you guys are involved in. And let me know how I can get, off air, how I can get more involved in that to help contribute and help make it a reality, because it's important that we validate ourselves, just because people have to. One of the biggest problems we have in the youth, because I deal with a lot of youth all the time, and the biggest problem is they can't see their potential success in a lot of other people. And so to their mind, it has them limited. Where I grew up in, my neighborhood was so poor and so destitute that the people there, the kids that I grew up with, they thought that was the actual norm. They didn't see anything outside of what they could be potentially based on what their environment gave them. The only time they saw anything exciting was what they saw on TV, and those people, they couldn't relate to them. So they didn't believe it was possible for them to achieve any of that. I went back to my old neighborhood, and most people are dead, locked up, or still in the same position, traumatized, drug addicts, cracked out. Some did make it out, but the majority just end up becoming mentally ill because of all the dogma, the mental oppression, and the psychological oppression. And so it's important to do things like what you're doing, because that's going to give a place for a young, bright mind to go and say, I can do this, I can achieve this. And it gives them that that mindset that it's possible, and that I think you just got to give people that spark. That once they get the spark, their brain will take over and do the rest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. What I love is the fact that I was untrained as an actor, untrained as a musician, untrained in any science and all of that. Therefore, the young men and women that are like us, who did not have the opportunity to go to these universities, I was so busy trying to pay my rent at 16 in comparison to being able to study for an ACT or SAT. So I didn't have the benefit of going to those places, but these young men and women know that they can tap into their ancestral reservoir the same way that I did. And there's guides there that's waiting to help them. There's guides that are waiting to help them, guides in truth. And I had the hardest time accepting that we have spiritual help, because you try and lock that in with the scientific world or an empirical view of reality. And it's an amazing opportunity to be able to relax and let all of that DNA that's been stored inside of you, let that begin to speak. Because every time something happened to that person that DNA was in, there's a chemical marker on there. There's an indentation. There's information in there. And so one moment you put yourself in that environment and meditate on it, those are the things that come to mind. They come to help you. You're not alone. And you have to trust that, because that instinct, where they try and tell you not to listen to it, that instinct is what got you to the egg. It got you to beat out 500 million of your brothers and sisters. You trusted that instinct that got you to the egg at all costs. So we have to remember to get back to that place, that where there's truth and the knowledge of whatever accreditation that they have out there. I tell you, it's nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense, or I wouldn't be able to break their calculator.
Right.
Or I wouldn't be able to overturn, their fundamentals, which destroys their accreditation and destroys the authority they have. So it's everything they have. They have to make it to where no one will listen to me, but you can't ignore the truth. It's simple, and it makes a point. The people that actually listen to it and apply it in their life will be changed forever. I call the truth, an infection. It's a virus, because once you start touching and tasting on it, you don't want the manufactured stuff. You want that pure, unadulterated truth, and that's what that's what I'm sharing, and I give everybody opportunity to examine the stuff. Take the wave conjugations, take the all shapes, take the linchpins, take them out of the book. I have it in the book, tcotlc.com. Examine them. If they're not a grand unified supersymmetrical system, completely throw it away and go right back to your platonic solids with their discrete symmetry. But if these show a better prediction ability, like we've been able to predict earthquakes for the last 3 years within 24 hours and within a 500-mile area, with our simple equipment. Can you imagine what we'll be able to do? The wave conjugations, they predict all distribution of matter. They predict all harmonic nodes, and that's where matter occurs, where these harmonies occur. But they predict all of those things. If they applied them, they wouldn't have any of the problems that they have out there. But they'll take 100 years to apply them. So now we're just building a separate society, and we'll branch off, and it'll have our own protection and our own understanding and our own people. It's just calling the collective, whoever is part of the collective, whoever our voices resonate with, it's reach out and let's combine, do the work that we were meant to do on this planet.
Yeah, you're talking about creating a breakaway civilization, which is what the ancients talk about doing. They talked about creating a breakaway civilization. You had some sections of the planet that had super advanced, high-level technological civilizations that reached the golden age, and you had some people on part of the planet still living in caves,
Yeah.
trying to group hunt mammoths. You know what I'm saying? So, at the same time. So, I mean, it seems like this cycle that exists. You know, one thing I'll say with the wave conjugations, can you break that down a little bit deeper? How do you initiate the wave conjugation, or there's something that's already propagating through space-time?
These I call them these are the dark matter. The wave conjugations actually be the ether. What we've defined is the ether that they had did their very best to make go away, because the Michelson-Morley experiment that they did in 1887, the same people reconducted that experiment 20 years later, and they were able to detect the ether, but that information wasn't published, or widespread, didn't become widespread. Why? Because they had taken the walk down quantum electrodynamics, and they didn't want to reverse their thing. But the only reason quantum electrodynamics came about was as a result of them not being able to prove the ether, which was that quintessence, that fluid that Newton wrote all of his equations based off of his understanding, the same way that air has to propagate sound. He recognized that there has to be a medium to propagate light and electromagnetism, and that medium, the ether. And Maxwell built all of his equations off of it, but they weren't able to prove it. So the wave conjugations, they actually define what happens where 4 forces meet, what happens where 8 meet, what happens where 6 meet, what happens where 12, or what happens where 24. All these natural folds that occur within the etheric world that we become the effects of. We're living the effects of these things. And the all shapes, the mirrored all shapes, the ones that expand out, they represent the dark energy. That everything else is moving its way through. So they're okay with understanding only 4% of the universe and 96% of it being dark and mysterious. Whereas we don't have that problem. The breakaway civilization that we're starting, it understands. And linchpin, it's a great tangential flight vehicle, but it's so much more than that. That was low-hanging fruit for that application. And even for the other patents, I don't think that there's any government on this planet that has any of the technology and the capabilities that we have, and I'm glad that they don't. I'm very glad that they don't.
That's amazing, because when you talk about, we're talking about the ether and this dark matter. Professor Sylvester James Gates Jr., he's the former scientific advisor to Obama when he was in office. He's a professor at the University of Maryland. He discovered these Adinkra codes. So he was looking at Adinkra symbols from the Dogon tribe, which is out of Mali, Africa. And he said, he presupposed, what if these were three-dimensional objects? And so as he turned these things into three-dimensional objects, he began to recognize mathematical equations in some of the formulas he had been looking into in supersymmetry. And these mathematical equations, according to him and these mathematicians that he put together on this super team, they discovered that these equations were error-correcting codes hidden within the Adinkra codes. And the error-correcting codes were the same exact error-correcting codes as search engines and web browsers. And that's what's running the ether of space-time itself. So in some way, shape, or form, the method of creation, which is why I wrote the book, Fractal Holographic Universe, within that method of this creation, it seems to be a code running that's driving everything. Have you been able to see that, or have you been able to experiment, or through these wave conjugations or the flower life, have you been able to detect anything to that effect?
Well, one of the things that Eric brought up with the linchpin, he was like, there's an error in here. There's a mistake in here. And that was the 109.47 angle instead of the 108-degree angle. But what he didn't realize is that's the area that the universe breathes through. There's always a hole there there's an area that there's no matter or mass that's allowed to congregate or to collect in these spaces. And these are natural vents. These are the same vents that the Birkeland currents run from, and that's that plasma that runs through our universe. These areas are necessary. It's the breakdown of symmetry that allows there to have the grand symmetry. You have to have some kind of break in it, and that's what the linchpin does. That's why I say it's the constitution between the micro, the electric micro, or the plasmic electric micro, and the magnetic radiative expansive thing. This is the communication board between it. It's an error correcting code. So it ties directly in with what you just said.
Yeah.
And that's it, but it's not a mistake, it's a necessity.
Right.
There has to be a breakdown, and there has to be a rebuild. You got to blow everything out in order to get the next breath in there. And there's a moment in which there's no breathing.
Yeah, this is powerful stuff. I mean, because and through this, and I'm working on some documents about this now. I was talking earlier before you got on about light, how a photon doesn't go from point A to point B, that it propagates from pixel to pixel. And are you seeing something similar with this, with the way the universe works from your perspective?
Well, light doesn't travel. That's what I'm noticing, that it doesn't travel. Right. It's the energy is being reproduced.
Yes.
It's reproducing itself. There's a sexual mating that's taking place with each waveform. There's a whole nother generation. Light is behaving that way, and we don't even see light. Light, we've never seen light. We just see the effects of it reflected on things, but we've never been able to see the light. It's a much darker or denser state, but that I've had the privilege of actually being able to patent, and put aside. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't share this with everybody, because with it, you'll end up being able to really create some harm. But it's that final state of matter. But light, they used to say that light behaved, what you could picture it the same way you picture a motion picture. Each film, each moment is captured, and then when shown on a screen or in a stream, it looks like one action, but it's actually a number of little bitty actions. No, the prospect of what we call light, is actually the shadow of an energy, of a greater energy. We're seeing the shadow of it in this thing. We're the condensation of what's taking place in the dark matter and dark energy. Our entire existence, our entire universe is just a condensation. It's just a balancing between two different pressure conditions. So our illusion of what we see and call light, is nowhere near the nature of it, because since so many creatures in the universe feed off of light, then you have to understand, since living things cannot eat dead things. A person can't eat a concrete brick and get the nutrients from it. He can only eat living things. So since so many creatures feed from light itself directly, wouldn't light have to be alive?
Yeah. Absolutely. And what I talk about all the time, that everything is actually alive in this energetic universe, right? Everything is alive. And what you said before was so interesting about the shadow, that we're seeing the effect. And, there's some scientists in a laboratory a few years back were able to reproduce an 8th dimensional quasi crystal. And when they pointed this quasi crystal in a particular angle, it cast down the shadow of a 4th dimensional quasi crystal. And when they tilted that in a particular angle, it cast down a sphere, which they believe is actually our universe, from an as above, so below. That's the micro, but on the macro scale, potentially they believe something like this could be happening, that this universe could be the shadow of a higher dimension or higher dimensional things going on. And it's kind of interesting, you bring up the fact that with the photons and everything else, like, almost like we're living in the shadow. It's interesting that these theoretical physicists had come up with the same idea or similar concept based on quasi crystals and the shadows that they actually cast. It gave them an inkling that maybe we are living in a shadow of a higher dimension, which is just mind-boggling. But I love this stuff because it's so cool to even try to wrap your mind around this kind of information. And so it's just incredible.
I mean, look at us. Here we are contained in this flesh. And we identify with this flesh, where this is, it's like we have a Range Rover. It's like if I identified with the Range Rover as being me, but we're living and existing inside of this strange world. When you see a car driving down the street or an old truck flatbed and there's a chain hanging from it, the emotion is going in this direction, but the sparks be going in the opposite direction. The sparks aren't flying in the same direction that the thing is in. The sparks are flying in the complete opposite direction. That's how I believe that light behaves. What we're seeing, the energy that we're seeing the energy is gone over here. We're seeing its shadow. We're seeing the leftover of it.
Right.
We're participating in that leftover part of it because that light, and that's the true nature of the Creator. That's the true nature of who we are, and that's why we identify with it. And one day we'll be done with these bodies, and we'll be able to see ourselves and like, oh wow, I'm not just, I don't only just see 0.005% of 0.5% of the total spectrum. I can now experience the entire thing, and then we'll wonder what we'll want to be flesh again. Because there's something interesting about things that you can do with the flesh. I like being married.
Yeah.
I like being able to touch my wife. But I would love to become a spiritual being again. I would love to get back there, but let me finish the work I got to do here now. Maybe there's a bridge. I can't wait to see you and show you some of these incredible things. Was hoping I would be able to do it tonight, but I thought it was 8:00.
Oh man, that's okay. What we're gonna do is we're gonna hop back on. Maybe even be able to do this in a much nicer setting, and give the people a high. I'm glad we could do it high fidelity, high quality when we get to going through your stuff, and I want them to see it in a way that they've never seen it before, and give you the respect that you deserve, showing it. And to be able to allow you to make your point, get your point across, and teach and share the knowledge in a way that hasn't been done yet. So everything happens in divine time. So don't worry, it's definitely going to happen. And when you were talking about it was something you were just talking about that really just sparked my brain for a second there on another topic. But it'll come back to me in a second because it wasn't
the spark going in the opposite direction?
That's what it was. Yes, thank you. So. A lot of people think that when they see something, even the screen they're looking at us on right now, they think that they're seeing us in real time. But they're not seeing us in real time, and you can't see anything in real time because the time it takes for the photon to ping off of the object and then hit the retina, go to the back of the brain and get deciphered, the thing has already moved, right? So what you're seeing is the past. We're always looking at the past. We know when we look up at the night sky, we're looking into the past. But when we look at anything, that even our hands, we're looking at our hands as they were, not as they are. And so, yes, you're right about that. When the spark, the truck is going that way and the sparks are going that way, we're not seeing things as they actually are in the moment. Even through quantum encryption, the reason why quantum encryption is so good is because at the quantum level, in order for you to find out, whether an atom is spin rate up or spin rate down, you've got to ping a photon off of that atom. And once you do that, the spin rate changes. So that's why quantum encryption is so incredible. So we're not experiencing real time as we think we are. There is always seems to be a slight delay.
Yeah. And if they understood how the universe behaves, how things, the ratio by which things contract in comparison to the ratio by which things expand. If they were able to apply those things in there, they would have an opportunity to be present in the moment. But what it will ultimately do is it actually pulls you out. And that's what I was talking about, being able to decouple and get to that space where you're not affected by any of the forces, that's when you're able to fully utilize the universe as a whole and the technology. You know,
Yeah.
it's quite possible, but you have to, you literally have to climb out of Plato's cave. You got to stop looking at shadows. You got to stop believing all the banging of the drums and all of these things. You got to stop being afraid of the boogeyman. You know, you got to face God and stop lying to yourself. Stop singing the hymns. You know, have a nice conversation with the true God and find the truth within yourself. And the stuff that you know is BS, you've got to be man enough to say this is some BS because it's there to help control you. Find the divinity in you. Keep moving. Keep challenging yourself. Like I just finished doing this job in Puerto Rico. It was a great opportunity to be there. But I'm there and I'm realizing these people, this is the Caribbean Palestine. They have never been allowed to vote. They have no vote in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
They cannot ship anything into Puerto Rico. They can't, even though Dominica is right next to it, or Haiti is right next to it, or St. Martin, they cannot trade. Everything, if they had a boat that was coming to Puerto Rico, it has to stop in Miami, unload everything in Miami, and then load it back onto the boat, and then send it to Puerto Rico. It's called the Jones Act. Been in place for 60 years. It takes away self-determination. It takes away any ability to grow. And these are people that were slaves. They're all descendants from slaves, and they're still sitting here in an apartheid state. Without half of their municipal buildings have not been restored since the Hurricane Maria.
Hurricane Maria. No, you're absolutely right, because part of my family is Puerto Rican, and everything you said is 1,000% accurate.
Yeah, these people, they have no voice, and this is okay. The U.S. is parading about like this is okay. These are people of African descent, and it shows you the state of our world. And everyone, like I keep telling them, you've got to stand up. You can't ask for becoming a state. You got to demand it or demand independence. And if I was them, I would demand independence. But we are all in that apartheid state. Like I just told you, they tried to cancel out my passport. First, it was being canceled because they said it was child support payment, and I was like, dude, my kids are all grown, and ex-wife has 2-3 homes. They're all, and then it was like, oh, it's delinquent tax, and so I got that paid, and now it's still sitting there. They just don't want you to leave the plantation to go and benefit someone else. You know, they'll rather lock you in, and so it's now I got to escape America. I got to get on the Underground Railroad to find a place where I can grow this tree, And
they don't want you to take your knowledge to another country and then they actually jump on it and start utilizing some of the information to build different types of technologies. That's what the real problem is.
Yeah. They want you to die, and they get to take it because you patent thing in here, and that's not going to happen. I put all the patents to a church, and that's the TCOTLC. It's the Center for Truth and Consciousness. That's what the TCOTLC means. And so I put all of the patents side of there so that the board members are able to dictate who gets applications and who doesn't. Israel wanted to license linchpin a year and a half ago, and I had to say no. I had to say no because of I'm not in line with a lot of their activities. Some really good people, but good people make mistakes too.
That's true. That's an absolute fact. Listen, man, it's so much we can talk about. I mean, I love to even get into some spirituality. The more I looked into the ancient civilizations, one thing I recognized was that not only were they highly advanced technologically, but also they seemed to be very highly advanced spiritually. They had, in my opinion, combined spirituality with technology. And that would make anyone seem to be omnipotent and omniscient, as some of the texts that I've read, which made it into some of these more canonized texts, like the Bible and other religious texts, these beings appear to be God-like, but not really being God. Now, I believe that you and I both believe in God. I've heard you say it many times, right? I believe in God. You believe in God. We believe there's a creator of the universe. Now, what I've learned in through my studies is that in a lot of ways that the creator of the universe that's being talked about in some of these texts might not be the one that we think it is. And I think that you're right. I think there's a lot, everything that man touches is corrupted. And I think there's a lot of texts that have come up that have been remixed and put out in a way where it becomes dogma and holds us back. One thing I heard some scientists talking about on the Discovery Channel years ago was about the fact that they were looking into the Arabs, and they were Muslims, and they were looking into their scientific advancements in the late 1700s to the early 1800s. And they realized something incredible. They saw that if it wasn't for the papal inquisitions, which created a lot of slaughter and murder, that they believe that the Arabs would have been on the moon in the 1800s. So to paint a picture of what I'm trying to say, this dogma has really held us back from becoming who we truly are meant to be. It's held us back and robbed our birthright, and we're scratching and clawing our way back out of this hole, trying to get back to who we truly are as people. I believe that we're going to get there because of people like yourself and many others that have courage. It's just a process that, in some ways, man, it's just like, it's such a slow, arduous process. But I believe it is happening on a very small scale, little by little.
Yeah, like whatever happened to me to get me to this place, I'm so happy for it. I'm happy for all of the trials and tribulations. I'm happy for being kicked out of the world. I'm happy for the misunderstandings, because it made me dig deeper into my instincts, my ancestral past, the place that I know is true, not the hopes that I want to go to, but where I've come from. And if everyone can tap into that place, that what you said about those advanced civilizations, they were spiritual and technologically advanced. We call that art. All those things as expressions of art, of artistry. And the moment that you start playing with that, putting it into play, like this last project, that's what I'm talking about over in Puerto Rico. One of the things that I ended up doing is for this one, I was like, I'm going to write with my left hand for this one. I'm just going to write all my Spanish stuff with my left hand and put that into play, and there's other projects where I write with my left hand or my right hand, and I'll do it backwards. But each one of those challenges, what it's doing is it's strengthening my brain. What I found when I switched from right hand to left hand, my brain reversed the chemistry. It had a different kind of line of thought. But then when I switch from writing forwards to backwards in either hand, it ends polarizing it. So now there's 4 individuals that's sitting there watching with an expectation of how something should be written, how it should be played out. And you realize that these are different personalities within you, but actually different DNA series, or different people from, my mother, my father, my grandmother, my grandfather, whoever they are. But you give them a voice, because one of them may have been left-handed. One of them may have been, like when you mentioned Mali, the Dogon people. My 21% of me is Mali, and another 20% is Benin Toga. We're actually, my people are from Timbuktu, actually. Wow. So it's that rich history. We can all draw into it, but everyone has to find the God inside, or it's like what they said about Paris. Unless you take Paris with you, you'll never see it. You have some expectation of it, and you have to see it in yourself. And that's why I'm so proud of what you've done. And, you've stood by me throughout this entire process, and it's been rough. And I really appreciate your forbearance and your patience with me, Billy. It really meant a lot. And I hope that we can continue to grow together. Dr. Jeff Memses was the one that was responsible for me actually getting out here and talking to the scientific community, because I had already said that there was nothing coming from it, that it wasn't going anywhere. And he's He's a professor that I met in somewhere in Mideast. But he really encouraged me to get this stuff out there, and for all the hits that it takes, great, you know. But there's truth. There's all truth, and if there's any lie, you know, don't throw it away.
Yeah.
You know, but they wouldn't have given me the patents if they were BS.
Right. That's a fact. That's a fact. Listen, man, it's an honor to have you on here. I really appreciate you. You know, against all odds, we got you on. And, you know, I'm just hoping, like you said, that we can build something together and we can set up something else and do another thing and bring more knowledge to people.
Let's do this again next week, but I want to bring my CTO on, and we can walk through. So I'm not just talking about the wave conjugations and the mirrored all shapes. I can actually show them. That's the point of it. That's what I would love to be able to do. But it was really nice just to be able to talk and give voice. And I appreciate Joe Rogan for bringing me on. I appreciate Eric for coming up there. I appreciate Brian Keating for still talking about me, you know, and Piers Morgan and all of them. What I don't appreciate, though, is, you know, when you have the truth in front of you and when you push it aside, you're not actually pushing that person that's delivering it aside. You know, it wasn't me that they were rejecting. They were rejecting the person that gave this knowledge to me. It was for their benefit, their edification. So you reject it if you want, but the people that care about their future, you know, look up the book, look at the wave conjugations, learn how to make them yourself, and you won't need any teacher.
Yeah, absolute facts. And I've seen some of your inventions actually working on some of our private talks, and it's amazing. It's mind-blowing stuff. So we'll come back on, we'll hit you up, we'll set up on another live, and we'll bring the wave conjugations to the people so they can wrap their minds around some more incredible knowledge. And so thank you again for coming on, man. I know you persevered. You're getting eaten up by bugs out there. It's hot and everything else, man. You're walking around the yard. I appreciate you, man. You're a real hero, man.
Yeah, that's you. And I appreciate you, like I said, for sticking with me.
Yeah.
You know, that means everything. Thank your wife for the time. You know, this means a lot. And I look forward, like I said, next week I'm good. Let's do this again and actually walk them through the stuff and walk through the patents. That's what is necessary. So they can, because there's things that they can use. And what you mentioned earlier about potentially open sourcing these things, some of these things, I would really love to talk about, you know, how that can benefit. I just don't want it to be misused.
Yeah, gotcha. We just got to brainstorm. Once we brainstorm, all kind of incredible ideas will come to us from the universe, man, and we can put something together that protects us, but also helps the world, you know?
Happy birthday next week on the 4th, man.
Hey, thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man. Forbidden knowledge on the 4th. Thank you, man. I'll be 53.
Yeah, man. I'm double nickels, man. So we're doing it right.
Yeah, yes, sir. Absolutely. All right, brother. We'll see you next week, man.
All right, later, bro.
All right, peace. All right, guys, that was Terence Howard. We got him on. You know, I apologize for the initial delay in getting him on in the beginning. We had a time discrepancy and some technological issues, but we got him on. But next week, when we get him on, or the next day that we get him on, we'll make sure that he's in the laboratory, and we're going to bring you some screen shares, and we're going to show you some real science, and it's going to blow your mind. All right. So make sure you get all your college professors and everyone else on that one when we get it scheduled, because you're going to see what I already saw. You're going to see some incredible, incredible knowledge. You're going to see what no one else had allowed him to really showcase the way that it should have been showcased, because he kept getting interrupted. He kept getting sidetracked and distracted with other crazy questions and sidelined with information and sidetracked. So you're going to be able to get it like it's supposed to be presented. I'm going to give him the opportunity to reach his epiphany moment, his aha moment, and to spread that knowledge with you all and spread it to the world. And you can take from it what you will or what you want. And if you don't want any of it, you don't have to take any of it. You don't have to believe any of it. You can still say it's pseudoscience, or you can say, hey, there's something here. But Terrence and I are going to really begin to collaborate on some other things that we've been talking about. And And hopefully we can bring some technologies, a limited amount of technologies to the world through an open source forum, as he was kind of mentioning there at the end. We'll see how we can work that out. But I'm a big proponent of creating some technologies that are patented, because I believe you have to patent certain things, but also creating industry sometimes forces you to do open source. Elon Musk, for example, he didn't patent his battery. He open sourced his battery to create an industry. And that created other iterations of the product, which allowed it to become global. And so in doing that, though, he built a multi-trillion-dollar industry. What if we were to do something like that with energy systems? How about localized energy systems where you can have power directly inside of your house and not be connected to the grid? Things like that, you know? I got contacted earlier today by a gentleman from Cuba. He sent me a message in Spanish, and he was telling me that, he lives in Cuba, and they're going through one of the worst power situations ever right now. And he wanted to know if I can send him some blueprints on how to create a power device, because they were having trouble even keeping one light bulb on. So normally it's so hard to see all of these emails and messages that I get, but I'm telling you, the universe allowed me to see that one for a reason. So I don't know if he knew it or not, but I had literally developed and invented a state-of-the-art AGM battery years ago. I showcased it on my tech company, First Class Space. I sent him the blueprint on how to build that. I sent him the blueprint on how to build a Baghdad battery, and I sent him a blueprint on how to build citrus batteries. All three batteries that I sent him the blueprints on and how to build, he can actually utilize things that should be locally available to him, even in that country there where he's at in Cuba. He should still be able to source those things and still be able to create a power source, whether it's to keep lights on, to power small tools, appliances. He should be able, if he follows my blueprints, he should be able to acquire those things. Now, I would have just shipped him some AGMs, but you can't ship those to Cuba. They won't take them. They'll just steal them and keep them for themselves. The government, whoever gets their hands on them, will take them, and that'll be the end of that. But so I sent him the blueprints. You see, that's what it's all about, man. It's all about doing that. It's all about sending out the blueprints. It's all about being of service to others, is what I'm trying to say. How can you help somebody? Sometimes you can't help everyone, but sometimes it's well within your grasp to do something. In this particular case, I gave him the knowledge. I gave him the blueprints. Now he can do with them as he wishes. And I guarantee you, based on what's needed to build those things, he has those right there at his grasp, even in Cuba, even in a third world country. So hopefully he takes advantage of that. Now, I could have been one of the people like, nah, man, I don't got time for this, and just, deleted the message. I wish I could respond to every message like that. It's just totally impossible. I mean, we try to respond to 100 text messages a day from the text message database and 40 or 50 emails a day. I mean, there's 88,000 messages in there right now, unread. I mean, and that's with us trying to answer as many as we possibly can every day. So if you can imagine, it's incredible. But the universe had me see his for a particular reason. Because why? He's going to replicate from my blueprint. He's going to engineer these devices. And then he's going to teach that information to other people who are going to replicate the device. And by that method, many dozens, maybe even hundreds, hopefully thousands of people will be able to create a local power source right in their homes without worrying about the grid going down. You see, I wanted to be able to give him something that was duplicatable, and that's what I sent him. They can duplicate that. They can recreate that. And guess what? I don't need anything for I don't need any money from it. My satisfaction is knowing that these people have appliances. They have fresh food in the refrigerator that won't go bad. They have light bulbs. They have tools that they need to use for work, or whatever the case may be, whatever they need electricity for, that they have that so they can have some semblance of a normal life. It's not their fault that they were stuck in Cuba. They were born in Cuba. Sometimes you just can't control where you're born, right? A kid can't control if he's born in the ghetto. I was born in the ghetto. I was born in the streets. Like, how can you control that? Let me take that back. I wasn't born in the ghetto. I was born in New York in Cambria Heights, and then we moved to the ghetto. But I had no control over where we moved to when I was a little kid. You know, just coming out of being a toddler, I can't say to my parents, hey, I don't want to go there. They're going to take me no matter what. So, you know, some people, you know, we take for granted who we are, where we are, what we have. This is one of the reasons why, you know, in America, especially, I hate it when people start giving me excuses for why they are and what they can and can't do, and how come this is not being done, and the man is holding them back, and all. I can't take it. Like it's so. I have the empathy. I've been developing that, but boy, it's so hard to hold back what I really want to tell them because of everything that I've been through and where I came from. It's like there's no excuses, man. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no excuses. We can't keep taking for granted who we are, where we are, and what we have. America is not the greatest country in the world. And that's a fact. It's not number one. If you can look it up, you can Google it. It's not number one. It's got a crazy poly trickster system. It's got a crazy big pharma system that's poisoning us. You know, all these other, you know, it's got the prison matrix and the financial matrix and the oppression matrix. But with all of that, it's still one of the greatest places to live. It still has a lot of opportunity. And you can't be blind to that. You can't get to the point where you're so blind to what opportunities are that lay right before you that you continue to blame what's going on in the system as to why you can't achieve anything. That's a victim mentality. And I can't conceive, I can't vibe with a victim mind. I can't vibe with that. I vibe with a PTG mind, not a PTSD mind. A PTSD mind is going to take the trauma and turn it into a victim mind. A PTG mind is going to take post-traumatic growth and turn that into developing society, civilizations, community, success, family, right? Life. PTG, post-traumatic growth. That's what Dr. Daniel Amen told me I had. He said, you have something called PTG. I said, what is that? He said, that's post-traumatic growth syndrome. You've developed a growing capability out of trauma. You alchemically convert trauma into growth, spiritually, financially, physically. Anything that comes at you, you turn it into an opportunity to grow as a person. We all need to develop PTG and get out of this victim mind. And she told, and she won't let me do this, and over there at work, and this one's against me, and they hate my guts, and because of this system, I can't get the health care and all of these things. Stop it. Stop it. Stop complaining about all the problems. You can address problems. I address problems all day long, but I'm not going to sit there and whine about them. Don't be a worrier, be a warrior. And what does a warrior do? A warrior finds solutions to problems. Address the problems and start looking for solutions, or becoming the solution to the problem, or become part of a group that are fighting for the solution to the problem. If we all took that mindset, this would be a different planet. We got to get away from the PTG, and we got to get into the mindset of, how can we help to uplift ourselves, our brother, our sister? How can we be of service to others? How can we help out in any which way that we can? We can't help everyone because you can't drain yourself either. I've done that before. It's kind of dangerous, trust me. One time, I almost gave away everything I had trying to help people, and it left me with nothing. I was in a very, very, very bad situation, and I had to climb out of that hole. And I learned a valuable lesson that you can't help everyone. You have to find balance. There's balance in everything. But when you have an opportunity to reach out and help uplift somebody, or give somebody some information that can help them save themselves, you should definitely do it. All right? You should definitely do it. Somebody said, I know the problems, but what are the solutions? Well, you got to meditate on that. If you go to Forbidden Knowledge TV and you go on there and look for Forbidden Solutions for Humanity, go to your app store. King Simon will drop the link in there. Go to your app store or go to the 4bk.tv, 4bk.tv link and look for, go to the search bar and search for Forbidden, with the number 4, Forbidden Solutions for Humanity. You're going to see 3 incredible roundtable discussions that are total of probably 10 hours of myself, my wife, and many others, Michael Beckwith, Paul Wallace, Zeke from New Era, 19 Keys, Dr. Be Serious. I mean, the list goes on and on. Kika Wise and so many others, Nikki Shepard, talking about issues and problems, but what are some of the potential solutions? Let's brainstorm on solutions to problems. And then I want you to, after you watch those 3 episodes of that show, watch those 3 episodes of that show, I'm sorry, I want you to be able to go and duplicate that. I want you to go out and teach that to people. I want you to be able to go out with your friends and your family members and you guys organize a solutions party. Go organize a solutions party and have people come over and you guys sit down and begin to talk topics. Have a bullet point list to go over different topics of different problems and issues that are facing yourself and humanity. And then start talking about potential solutions to those problems. Start hypothesizing on what could be done. Start thinking about people that you're connected to that have solutions or could get to be able to access some of the things that could create solutions. If everyone started having these solutions parties all over the world would change overnight. The world would change instantaneously, like they say in the Bible, in the twinkling of an eye. See, what they don't tell you is it takes effort. Instead of waiting around for this magic to happen, instead of waiting around, kicking your feet up and watching the world burn, it's all about taking action. That's why I have that formula that I came up with. CT multiplied by A equals M. Conscious thought multiplied by action equals manifestation. A lot of people forgot about the action steps. That's the biggest problems I have with religion. Religion is primarily all about hoping and waiting and wishing and praying and sitting back and waiting and waiting and waiting and seeing if you're going to get the blessing. My formula is I'm going to get the thought and I'm going to act on those thoughts. And my action steps are going to create my manifestation. I'm going to create my own reality. I'm not going to sit back and wait for things to happen. I'm not going to sit back and hope for things to happen. I'm going to go out there and make them happen. It's a different kind of mindset. It's a different kind of power. And when you understand how that power works within you and how to utilize it and to tap into it, your life is going to change. And if you can teach that to other people, we can change the whole planet. We can change the minds of people on a global scale with a simple formula, CT multiplied by A equals M. We can change the planet. We got to have everybody doing action steps. Your community is dirty and filthy, like the one I grew up in. Well, guess what we used to do when I was kids? My brother and I would have to go outside. We lived in this dirty quadruplex for a short period of time, almost by Liberty City in Miami. When we had gotten out of Opelika, we thought we were going to a better neighborhood. We ended up damn near in Liberty City off of Biscayne Boulevard and 111th Street. We're living in this dirty, filthy quadruplex. The apartment we lived in was about the size of this room that I'm sitting in now, which is a pretty small studio room. That was for the whole family. My sister, my brother, and I, we slept on one couch bed together. And my parents had the little tiny bedroom. The bathroom was so tiny, even when I was a small kid, if I stretched my arms out, my hands would touch the walls. And the kitchen was so tiny, it was the same thing. It was a super narrow, little tiny kitchen with a really small refrigerator. I remember because I was, I'm taller than my brothers and sisters, but I wasn't a grown teenager yet. I was a preteen, and I was at the height of the refrigerator, and we had a black and white TV. But the point is like thinking about this and understanding, you know, where you come from and what's going on and what it takes to get out of situations like that. It takes a strong mind. It takes the conscious thoughts. It takes the action. There's people in that community today that are still there if they're still alive. I know when I went to Opalaka, I saw some people that were still there. You have to put the action steps behind your conscious thoughts or nothing's going to happen. You have to be able to set goals and you have to go out there and try to reach those benchmarks. And you have to have belief in yourself that you can do it. Belief in yourself. Belief in your abilities. And if your abilities you don't feel are strong enough in whatever area they need to be, then you need to go out and work on perfecting those abilities or becoming as good as you can within those abilities. And then trust in that. Not in outside sources. And the most important thing you can do is stop making excuses. See, I had Terence Howard on here tonight. He's not a man that makes excuses. He's a man that goes out there and chases his heart, follows his passion, and follows what his higher self tells him to do. His higher self says, look into the flower of life. He looks into the flower of life. His higher self says, break it down and explore these wave conjugations. He goes and does that. He says, go out here and look into these linchpins and see how they can connect and how they can build a civilization, a new world. And he does. He follows his heart. He does that. Because he trusts and believes in himself. A person that can't trust and believe in themselves have absolutely nothing. You have nothing. You're just an NPC, a non-player character. That's it. Until you understand and realize that the voice that you're hearing in your head, giving you this beckoning advice, is really your higher self and not some man in a white robe with a magic wand flying through space, that it's you talking to yourself from a higher dimension, giving you intuition, insight, innovation, then you've reached another level of consciousness. Literally. When you realize that, then you've been born again. Born again in the spirit, consciously. I recently saw something on my feed today of a person that I know that, is involved or at one point really heavily involved in the conscious community, and then I see this person going and getting doused in water and getting this baptism and all this stuff, and I'm going, people really get confused. Once I see that, I realize that a person has lost faith in themselves. They've lost faith in their ability. They've lost an understanding of reality. Because when you do that, you're giving away all your power to an outside source. You're saying, I give up everything I have, and I'll be floating on the wings of faith and promise, hoping that something comes my way to take care of all of my situations. That's not my mindset. And like I say, I believe in God. Because why? The quantum physics, the fractal mathematics, the supersymmetry, the supergravity, pi, phi, and everything else prove that there's a creator. You can't escape that. But what I'm saying is that creator exists within every Planck unit of space-time, including every Planck unit that exists on my avatar body, that exists all around me in the ether. Every atom of my body is vibrating to the divine source, which makes me divine. I am God and God is me. I'm a fractal of the creator, here to experience life in the third dimension subjectively and to send back and transmit information on an angel, back to higher dimensions as to what it's like to be Billy Carson in the third dimension on this planet. And everyone else is doing the same exact thing. There's only one mind, with the illusion of individuality, with the illusion of separation. Like the Mayans say, in lakek alakin, I am another you. The ancients knew this already. They knew it. The one thing you have to have is you have to have belief and faith in yourself, and you have to have courage out here. Terence Howard has courage. Billy Carson has courage. King Simon has courage. Richard Merritt has courage. Dr. B. Series has courage. I mean, I can keep going on and on. Robert Grant has courage. 19 Keys has courage. Robert Schoch, Dr. Robert Schoch has courage. People that go out there and go against the norm to help bring this planet back into a frequency where it can achieve a golden age again, once again. And that will happen, my friends. It will happen. I guarantee it. I want to thank you guys for hanging out, for spending time, for being patient as well, because we know we had some technical difficulties trying to get Terrence on in the beginning. So I went into the fractal holographic universe. I went into the compendium of the Emerald Tablets, and we talked about the Kardshev scale. We got Terence Howard on for about a good hour and 20 minutes. He had to come on a cell phone and having some other issues, but we got him on. And we're going to come on again. We'll put up another schedule. This time he'll be at a computer. We'll be ready to give you a formal presentation of some of his scientific discoveries. We want to bring it to the world. We don't want to keep it hidden. We don't want to keep it in the dark. We don't want to cover it up and sweep it underneath the rug. We don't want the mainstream people to scoff at it. We're going to bring it to the people that have an ear. Let them listen. Let them hear. And if there's anything you can take from it, take it. Something you may say, well, I can't, there's nothing here for me, or there's nothing I can use from this. Or you might be an inventor or a scientist, say, I can't, this doesn't work for me. And guess what? That's okay. It's okay. Honestly, it really is okay. Everything isn't for everyone. Somebody might see something in this man's work that sparks their brain on a whole new wave of different technological advances for human civilization. This is why I don't want it hidden. There's something there. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it in private meetings that we've had. And I want to be able to share that with you all and give you guys an opportunity to see it as well. All right. So anyway, love you guys. Listen, if you guys want to come hang out with me in Egypt, make sure you go to forbiddenknowledge.com. I'll type it in the live chat. Okay, forbiddenknowledge.com, and go to the upcoming tours. I just dropped it in the live chat. Go to the upcoming tours and look for the Forbidden Tour of Egypt, or come hang out with me on the Forbidden Tour of Peru. It'll be my wife and I, Elizabeth. We're going to take you on the greatest tours you've ever seen. We'll take you all throughout Peru, forbidden Peru, places that you've never seen. Place that you've heard about, but you won't get the experience as you would on a forbidden tour. And through Egypt, you already know that's just crazy. Hidden chambers, hidden places, underground crypts, climbing through pyramids, opening doors and shafts that have been locked for maybe sometimes 50, 60, 100 years, going into secret locations, spending time meditating in the pyramid for 2 hours, 3 hours. So descending down the subterranean shaft, going way out in the desert to temples like the Temple of Seti, where you can see technology etched into the hieroglyphs, sailing down the Nile for 7 days while I lecture along the way every single day, coming up and giving you lectures on the cruise as we sail down the Nile, and then getting off the cruise at different ports of call to go visit ancient sites, VIP status. When we show up, the tourists have to get out. It's forbidden family time. Super exclusive, super VIP. Make sure you guys click the link, forbiddenknowledge.com. And don't forget to get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on your app store. It's a 5-star app on Apple, a 5-star app on Google Play. And make sure you guys download the app and go in there and watch my Egyptian Mystery School. 39 episodes, 36 hours of teaching for only $8. So go get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on your app store immediately. And don't forget to give it 5 stars. All right? Guys, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And I will catch y'all later. Peace.